Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat teaching with Rabbi Sarah Benor.
This is Dr. Sarah Benor, most well known to me and to this community as a parent of children who I have taught and who have been in this school, but very much a scholar in the Los Angeles area. You'll see here that she primarily, would I say, you're at HUC?
Yes,
okay.
At HUC, and we also teach at USC.
Right. So HUC, and then also, of course, USC is right there. HUC is on USC's campus. And Sarah's actually going to be going right off to Israel right after this to be giving, would you say 13 different lectures between here and South Africa, which is amazing. So we're going to catch her right before she gets on a plane. And it's really just an honor to have you. It's always an honor to learn from you. And the floor is yours. I will pass out. Do you want me to pass them out right at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Wow. Well, what a nice crowd. It's great to see you all here. So today we read Va'et Hanan, and one of the things in there, as Mark likes to say, it's a greatest hits of Judaism, and I keep thinking about his summer camp where he did a skit for this parsha, Va'et Hanan, to the tune of YMCA, Va'et Hanan, and so I can't hear that word without singing that. So thank you for that. That's my husband. So one of the things in the Ten Commandments is Shamor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kodsho. So I want to talk about that and Zachor, but I want to actually focus on the line from Lechadodi, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibur echad. So what is that? Well, it is a Kabbalistic interpretation that actually comes from the Talmud. And if you look at your handout on page 3, I put all these texts on the handout so you can look at them at your leisure, but I just want to briefly mention the Talmudic reference. And it says, why do we say, so that line in Shamor, in Lechadodi, comes from this Talmudic quote, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, were spoken in one utterance in a manner that the human mouth cannot say and that the human ear cannot hear. So it's this mystical interpretation of, wow, it's like this one word, and you hear it as both Shamor and Zachor. And now maybe it was something like Shmar Zchor or Zchar Shmor or something like that, but I like to think of it as, in a slightly different way, that it was, when they say dibur echad, what does that refer to? So it's one utterance, right? And I like to think of this in relation to my work in preserving endangered Jewish languages. Now, what does all this have to do with Shamor v'Zachor? Well, when we think about the languages that our ancestors spoke, how many of you still speak the same language as your great-grandparents? One? Maybe? A little bit? Okay, a little bit. Anyone else? What are some of your heritage languages that you don't speak, but your ancestors did? Yiddish? Any other languages besides Yiddish?
German? Kurdish and Aramaic actually was part of your Judeo-Christian Aramaic webinar several years ago.
Oh, very cool. Okay. The one about Jewish Neo-Aramaic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And so is your family from Kurdistan?
Yeah, both my parents from the Sanandaj, the capital.
Sanandaj. So you spoke the Hula Ula in your family? And that's actually a really interesting name of a language, as you probably heard in that lecture, because it comes from the word Yehuda'utha, which means Judaism, Yehuda'uta, right? And the and th become l. So it becomes Hula Ula. Yehuda'uta becomes Hula Ula. And so that's an example where just one word allows us to remember and to keep, to Zachor and Shamor, right? And so I want to just go around and ask you for some other words that allow you to remember and maintain your ancestral languages. And to help you to jog your memory about this, or give you a sense of what I mean, look at the back page of the handout, and we have some information about heritage words. So a heritage word is a word or a phrase from an ancestral language used within a different primary language. So the different primary language in our case is English, but the ancestral language could be Yiddish or hula ula or any other language that our ancestors may have spoken. And what are the words that are maintained? Well, they tend to be in certain semantic domains. They might include ethnic labels or foods, religion, blessings or talismans, terms of endearment or positive emotion, insults or negative emotion, and relatives. And so you see in that little graphic there that the immigrant generation or anyone who spoke another language continues to speak in that language after the immigration, often, but they don't necessarily speak it to their children. Why not? Why didn't your ancestors speak these languages to you? Well, maybe some of them did. How many had ancestors who spoke Yiddish or hula ula to you? To you. Okay, you did? You did? And so this is unusual, right, in America today, because most of the immigrants who came from other countries were going to continue to speak their ancestral language, but not to their children. So that happened in my family in an interesting way. My great-grandparents spoke Yiddish, and they came from Lithuania. When my grandmother started school, kindergarten, they sent home a form, and it said, "What language do you speak at home?" And they got scared. They got scared that they would be sent back to Lithuania. So they, from that day on, did not speak Yiddish to their children anymore. So my grandmother didn't know Yiddish, and she was intrigued when I learned it in college. But she had some heritage words, some words that were maintained in her family that her parents would still use with her, even when they were mostly trying to speak English. Yeah.
Is there any, and if this takes you on a tangent, we can talk about this another time, is there any research around these types of categories also stretching to, I'm thinking of like German Jews who didn't want to then share about their experience in the Holocaust, but maybe if they were talking to a spouse or to a sibling, that they would speak about it in that language as opposed to the language their children would understand?
Yes, absolutely. So that is a very common phenomenon. In Yiddish, we call it Reden Yiddish, als die Kinder sollen nicht verstehen. Speaking Yiddish so the kids won't understand. And some people understand, right? There you go. Yeah, okay, there you go. There you go, okay.
All right, well, there you go. And class is over.
All right. Okay. All right, so, what's that?
Saying that about Farsi.
Okay, so let's hear. So, like, how would you say that in Farsi then?
The Farsi begging, they won't. Let's speak in Farsi because the kids won't understand.
There you go. So, and what's your name?
Bobby.
No, her name.
Noah.
Noah, what do you know any Farsi words? Any? None at all?
I know a lot of words that my Bobby used to use, and I can actually name them.
Okay.
The one that she always used was buksha, which everybody does not know the word. It means spanky.
Okay.
It means spanky, and then she used the word posh sometimes.
Posh.
And the tokas.
Yeah.
And then the other word that she uses is oikavolts.
Oikevald?
And the other one she uses kaput.
Okay.
And sometimes she uses oive mir.
All right.
So I know a lot of
All right.
things.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's hear yours. So what are some Farsi words that you know? What is it?
Gorbun is on
Oh,
his
Gorbun,
chest.
the Gorbun, yes.
So it's like the term of endearment, where it's interesting because in Hebrew we say korban, like, to be near, to always near sacrifice. So in Farsi, Gorbun Beram is like, I would sacrifice for you.
Yeah, that's right. So that one is in our dictionary. I maintain a dictionary of these words. It's called the Jewish English Lexicon, and it has words that Jews use within English from Hebrew. They're mostly from Hebrew, a bunch from textual Aramaic, and a lot from Yiddish, and then a much smaller number from Farsi, from Jewish Neo-Aramaic, from Juhuri is the language spoken by Jews in Azerbaijan and Dagestan, from Bukharian, spoken by Jews in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and from Ladino, Jews who came from Rhodes and Turkey and Greece, originally from Spain, right?
Just if you guys never heard of her.
Paige, let's just raise our hand.
Her name is Judy Frankel.
Yes.
She's Latino, and she's Jewish at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes. Ashkenazi and Sephardic. So there are communities in the U.S. Whose ancestors came from originally Spain and then Greece and Turkey. Anyone here have any ancestry from those areas? You do? Where is your family from?
I wanted to ask you a question. Is there any society that take care of this language? Because I'm born in Iran, but my grandparents live in Hamilton.
Yes.
Esther Mordechai.
Yes.
I think the language that they talk is very ancient.
That's right. Okay, so what you're talking about, yeah, go ahead.
My parents talked to each other that language.
Mm-hmm.
My grandparents talked to each other. But for me, we didn't talk. My children, and I'm very sorry. This language is disappearing.
That's right.
Because
So
the second generation,
Yeah.
I am after my parents and my grandparents. It's disappearing.
that's right, and it's the case for all of us, right? But in what happened in your family was a slightly different thing, and this is a very interesting story. In Iran, in the mid-20th century, the government said everyone has to study in school in Farsi, in Standard Persian, and so it wasn't just Judeo-Hamadani, but also all the different languages that Jews spoke, Judeo-Kashani or Kashi, and Judeo-Esfahani, and Judeo-Yazdi, Judeo-Shirazi. Now, most of those languages are actually not in the same branch of the Iranian family as Persian is. Shirazi is, but the rest of them, Hamadani, Yazdi, etc., they're in the median branch. So like you said, they're ancient. Like when we read in speaking of Mordechai and Esther,
I'm not sure it's come from this time of Esther Mordechai.
Probably, maybe, it's possible. And so when we read in the book of Esther, Paras Umadai, so it's the Persian and the Median were, different empires, right? And so those languages stem from that empire, the Median Empire. So the Jewish Language Project, which I run, is doing a lot to document these many endangered languages, because most of the languages that Jews have spoken for the last several centuries are now critically endangered. Not Yiddish. The language that is most of your ancestral language is not endangered. Why? Because of Hasidim. Because, in Brooklyn, in Antwerp, in other places, Hasidic communities are keeping Yiddish alive, and in an intergenerational way. The children there are learning it from their parents, and that's the hallmark of a vibrant language.
But it's also being taught in places like the Yiddish Book Center and the Workers' Circle.
That's right.
And YIVO teaches Yiddish. There's all kinds of places that are teaching it.
True. But a language can still be endangered and also taught. And what counts as endangered is if it is not being transmitted intergenerationally. If the age of native speakers is old, like 75 and older, that language is endangered. If there are young people learning the language, then it is not. So one of the Jewish languages, Juhuri, or Judeo-Tat, from Azerbaijan and Dagestan, is a little less endangered because there are some people in their 20s and 30s that know it because of one town in Azerbaijan called Remizi Khasaba, or Red Village, and in that town, they continued to speak it. The last article about it was from 2008, so I don't know if the kids there are still learning it, but I have seen kids speaking this language in theatrical performances, but it's in the community that moved to Moscow. Anyway, very interesting migration patterns and stories with all of these languages. But for the most part, these languages are endangered. But getting back to Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, we can maintain elements of them. We can't maintain the whole language, but elements of them in just dibur echad, in just one utterance, one phrase or one word that is part of how we speak our regular language, English. So I want to just go around and give everyone an opportunity to say some of their heritage words. And so for most of you, I guess it will be Yiddish, and then maybe you have a Judeo-Hamadani word that you remember. Do you have one?
Is a society, Iranian society, I don't know all the name, that they gathering from the memory of the old people.
Yeah, it's called Seven Dorim. Seven Dorim, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Machinery.
Yeah.
For these languages in Hamadan, from Shiraz, anywhere in Iran. And they try to gather some of the vocabularies.
Yeah.
But the whole language, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, so that's what we're working on. The Jewish Language Project is focusing a lot on languages of Iran, including Judeo-Hamadani and Hula Ula. Hula Ula and other Jewish Neo-Aramaics are actually pretty well documented already, but these other languages from Iran, Judeo-Hamadani, Kashi, they're not. There's hardly any documentation. So that is what we've focused on a lot at the Jewish Language Project. Also, since I'm in Los Angeles and there's a lot of Persian Jews around, it makes sense to do that. And I want to just tell you two stories about how we're focusing on Iranian languages, and then we will have a chance to go around and share our heritage words. So there's a young man in Great Neck, New York, named Ashton Cohen, and he saw, I don't know, a social media post or something about languages of New York. And it was a map, and it had in Great Neck, some languages that were spoken, and his family language was not on there. So he added it, and it was Judeo-Tuiserkani. Tuiserkan is, it's near Hamadan, right?
Near Hamadan.
Yes. And so the way they spoke there was different enough from Judeo-Hamadani that it was worth documenting. And so he put that dot on the map, and within a few days, this was done by the Endangered Language Alliance, one of our partner organizations in New York, and someone contacted him and said, wow, you put on Judeo-Tuiserkani, can you connect me with speakers? So he did, and he started recording his grandmother. And he thinks that his grandmother and his great aunts and uncles are the last speakers in the world of Judeo-Tuiserkani. Wow. So, and get this, he's 19. Wow. And so he's been recording them and trying to learn how to transcribe and translate it. And so he took our class. Another class that we offered was on documenting endangered Jewish languages, and we focused on Kashi. Why Kashi? Because we had enough people who could still speak it that were willing to participate in the class. So that's one story. The other story is actually about Kashi, or Judeo-Kashani from Kashan, Iran. So a woman named Sabrina, who lives in LA, in Beverly Hills, contacted me one day from her father's hospital room. He had just had a stroke, and she was very upset, obviously, and she also realized that when he dies, his language will die with him, because he spoke Kashi to his parents and his siblings, but not to her and her siblings. He didn't pass it down. For the same reason, he did pass down Farsi because of what happened in the mid-20th century when the government said you have to speak Farsi. So Sabrina was Googling how to save a dying language, and I guess she got to the Jewish Language Project through that, and she filled out our form, and I immediately got back to her and said, yes, we're interested, we would love to to work with you on this. And so she told me more of her story. She said that her dad had descended into dementia over the last 2 years. And as he started having these symptoms of dementia, he started speaking his childhood language. And at first, she didn't understand what he was saying because it just sounded different than his normal language. And then she realized what it was and kind of remembered that he had used this with his parents when she was a kid, but he had never spoken it with her, so she didn't understand. And this became a problem over the coming months as he started using it more and more, and eventually exclusively. And so she actually learned it from him and took over 100 pages of notes. And she said she wanted to share these notes with the Jewish Language Project and work on our dictionary. And so right now she is still doing that. She's still working on our dictionary. What is she doing? She is helping to Shamor, to preserve this language so that future generations can zachor, can remember what their ancestors are doing. But we can also do this one word at a time. And so now I want to go around and just share our heritage words, and then I think there'll be time for questions, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have like 13 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So who wants to share a heritage word?
Do we want to maybe give like parameters? Like
Oh,
is
yes.
everybody sharing one
Everyone
word?
shares one word.
Okay, great.
One word. I'll start.
Great.
My word is bunchki. So it's not a common word, but it is a word that means donut or some kind of pastry, but it was a term of endearment in my home. My parents would say it to me and my siblings when we did something cute, like, oh, you're so cute, bunchki. And so that became a heritage word, but I did not pass that down to my children. Okay, let's go this way, and then we'll...
I mean, so many. Noodle kugel was one of my mom's dishes that she liked to make. She
food,
always pronounced
food.
it that way, noodle kugel.
Okay, nice.
Ashena punam.
Okay, and let's just translate. So kugel, I guess people know kugel, right? And shena punam.
Ashena put, I think, means like a very cute, sweet face.
Yes, pretty face. Pretty face. Okay, next. Gornish meaning? Nothing.
For me, my mother would always, when she was cooking, would either say, well, we'll put a bissel of this or a smidgen of that. And for years, only within the last 10 years, bissel just means a little bit, which is the same thing as smidgen. It was only about 10 years ago or so that I learned that smidgen was an English word.
Oh, so for you, it was one of those words like ladle, where some people think ladle is a Yiddish word. A ladle.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like Yiddish. Yes.
There's a lot of funny comments. I mean, I know Yiddish has this too because I've seen them online, but in Farsi, like, when you're talking about a kid that's so cute, the different things you could say. So one of which is Gigato Bocharam, which is just like, basically you're so cute that I would eat your liver.
That's very weird.
Wow.
Actually, you talked about kashi. The kashi, Israel kashi, Jewish kashi, come from Spain. They run away after they start killing Jewish people in Spain. They run away toward Iran, and they went to Kashan. The Kashan is really come from Spain.
There may be some stream of migration, but there isn't linguistic evidence of that.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
In my Hamadan, all the Jewish run away from Russia. My grandparents, my great grandparents come from Russia.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's close to Russian language.
Okay, well, so there's probably Yiddish at that point, but so it's an interesting, what you're talking about here is a history of migrations around the world, right?
Yes.
It's not just Jews from Iran and Eastern Europe coming to America or Israel, but it's also throughout history there have been these migrations for various reasons. Okay, let's keep going around. Your turn.
My family, both sides, have been here for 5 generations.
So you want to share an English word?
Yeah, maybe a word that you associate with your parents or grandparents that's unusual.
I associate with my father. I'm not going to say him sitting down.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
Freilich,
Meaning?
joyous.
Good. Okay. At the end, your turn.
I'm Pace.
Okay. Go ahead.
She's Israeli.
I think the two words are treif and shul.
Treif and shul, okay.
A freshe Manse.
A freshe Manse.
What does that mean?
I guess it translates another story, but it was used derogatorily. Like I used to dread my parents going to PTA meetings. I used to dread it because if the teacher said anything negative about me, it wasn't a pretty sight when my mother got home. And a fisherman said, like another story.
Yeah.
It was said wearily somehow, like another problem, that kind of stuff.
Oh, interesting. So it literally means a fresh story, and
it's a fresh story.
Yeah.
It was used derogatorily.
Yeah. And an interesting thing about that word manse. So where in Europe did your mom's family come from?
My mother, Poland, close to Ukraine, but my father came from the Łódź area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so manse, that pronunciation is like Poland, Ukraine, and it's interesting because it's ma'aseh. It's the Hebrew word ma'aseh, and
I don't have the accent that my mother had.
Okay.
And obviously.
No, that's okay. But
when I speak Yiddish, it's known to be with an accent.
Of course, that's fine. But what's interesting is you had that little N in there, manse, which is an example of that dialect, and it's an interesting remnant of that ayin, because in most Yiddish words the ayin is not pronounced, but in a few words like manse and yankiv or yankel, it is. And it's like that in some other Jewish languages, like in Judeo-Italian. The way you say to see is ngainare, ayin, or shemang. The ayin becomes a ng sound. Very interesting. Okay, getting off on a tangent. How about you? One heritage word.
So, there were a lot of things that we had in our house because I actually come from Hasidic school. So I'm used to this. So my father would always use the word lakshan, and then he would always use the word yoach, meaning sauce, with gefilte, which is technicality. So that's a lot of the things that I heard over the years.
Oh, interesting. Because yoach often means chicken soup.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah. Oh, cool. How about you?
So my word that my buddy used a lot on me and my brother was, "I'll give you a bookshop on the tokas," which means I'll give you a spanking on the butt.
Yeah.
On the butt. And she also used the word puno.
Okay.
Puno means face.
Thank you.
So
I can't think of any.
Okay.
Term of endearment from my grandparents was Zisali.
Aw, sweetie. Okay.
A close to Mitzia.
A good.
Used in an ironic.
Oh, okay.
It's not a gross Mitzia.
Like a big.
Find.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
A grosse Mitzia. Like Mitzia.
Nice. Okay. How about you? Do you want to say a word? No. Okay. Go ahead.
So I have like in a row in a string, what it is here, or you've got some new vault in a row. But I also think the main thing that was passed down was like music. So like the way that my mom would chant Seder on Passover is like, I think, supposedly like it really came down through the generations, which is something that I can try to do too, which is cool.
Beautiful. And so what your point?
But I didn't. I wasn't that lucky. I wish I remember the talk.
Yeah.
I don't.
Can you remember one word?
I myself know. My husband, I said, he's in hospital.
Yeah. Okay.
He's not here, unfortunately.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes.
Zayda or Zayda.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, in terms of the pronunciation, by the time I studied Yiddish in college, my grandparents had moved away to Israel, and by the time I graduated, they passed away that year. So I didn't get to speak to them. I wrote to them, we exchanged a few letters, but you can't tell the pronunciation from the letters. And my father didn't like to speak Yiddish with me because here I learned from a book and proper grammar and all that. He just kind of felt like that was his first language. Maybe it was inadequate. So some of the pronunciations of, what was their accent, what was their vernacular, I've missed.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yehuppets, which means a small place far, far away, out in the boondocks.
Yeah, okay.
I was fortunate. Both my parents spoke Yiddish, and I spoke it till I went to school, 6 years old, and lost it. But so I know all the bad words. Behema, you're like an animal.
Okay. That's on the list.
And I have vivid memories of my mom telling my dad many times, "This yet." In other words, when he would ask her to do something, she would say, "Not now."
Yeah.
I might have, every Monday night, I meet online with a Yiddish novel reading group. We're reading Yiddish literature in Yiddish. We're so fortunate to have a woman that knows fluent Russian, Ukrainian, and stuff like that, really helping us out a lot, because those things influence Yiddish depending on where you live and stuff like that. But we're really fortunate for some of the incredibly knowledgeable people that are in the class to help us translate. Really good, because even for those of us that have a familiarity with Yiddish, we know how to read it and write it and all that.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm gonna
okay.
One more.
Yeah. Okay, one more. Yes. Say it again.
So if like a parent or a grandparent saying like Gorbunet Beram to their grandchild or child, like I would sacrifice for you. If the child is paying attention and wants to be respectful in response, they'll say Durazjun, which is like far from, God forbid.
Wow.
God forbid you would do that for me.
That's nice. So how did you learn that was the response?
How'd you learn that?
Did someone, you hear it a lot? So you hear it, yeah. All right. Well, there's some people online. Let me just give them a chance. Tybal, you have your hand up. You're muted, so you have to. You. Okay.
They should be able to unmute.
They should be able to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, does anyone else online want to say anything?
I think we have
Maybe they can't unmute.
One more comment
in
the room.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious, what is the academic approach to, documenting or preserving an ancient language? What's the approach?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say ancient, because if it was ancient, dying. Okay, so yes, the answer is to record people speaking. And ideally, you record different types of people, because there's always going to be differences in how men and women talk, and people of different regions and different areas. And so you want to get a diversity of people. And you don't just want to ask them questions. You want to record people speaking to each other. But it's hard, because so many, when a language is dying, people sometimes forget to speak that language, or they'll mix languages, which is normal, and we all do that. I mean, that's what heritage words are. It involves language mixing. But really recording, and then transcribing, and then translating. Because if you just record, it's not that useful for later if you want to learn the language, or it's not that useful for analyzing the language. So recording, and then also eliciting particular words and grammatical features, and then writing grammars and dictionaries. Yes?
You mentioned earlier that Yiddish is not considered an endangered language because there's a stream of people who have intergenerational transmission. What I have observed in a lot of cases is that the current generation is transforming the language.
Yeah, that's right.
The dynamics of the language is true, but sometimes transforming it a la, remember Valley Speak?
Yeah, Valley Speak, yeah.
And I hear that happening. And I'm like, really?
Well, all right.
What is the official reaction?
Yeah, great question. The answer is, a language changing is a sign of a vibrant language, because all languages change. In fact, when people try to preserve a language that is endangered, they often try to not mix it with the local language. And that's where Yiddishist Yiddish, like the kind of Yiddish that you mentioned before from Yivo and Workers' Circle, is different from Hasidic Yiddish, in that Yiddishist Yiddish tries to be pure and come up with new terms for things. Well, those are different dialects, right? But so whatever dialect you're speaking, they try to keep it pure, but Hasidic Yiddish doesn't. So, for example, how do you say, what's the word? Oh, I know. Remember the Palm Pilot? That was, yeah. So I remember hearing a Yiddishist tell me the way you say Palm Pilot is kafayadke. Because kafayad is the palm of your hand, right? And kafayadke is like a thing you put in your palm. But Hasidim would have called it Palm Pilot. and that's true. So like the way you say to jump in Hasidic Yiddish is jumpin', you know? And Hasidic Yiddish is changing not just in using lots of English words, but also in changing the grammatical structure. So they don't say di, der, and dos, or dus anymore. They just say de for the different genders of the word the, they'll just say de. And changing the pronunciation.
Sorry,
yeah.
We really have to get to Mariv, and so I just want Dr. Benor to be able to wrap up, and then while we're doing Birkat Hamazon, if anybody has questions for Dr. Benor, you can ask her. I just want to make sure that we get to Rabbi Kligfeld leading us in Mariv at the time that we told him we would.
Good call. So I will just wrap up by saying one question that I had with Shamor v'Zachor b'Dibur Echad is, why is it in that order? Why isn't it Zachor v'Shamor b'Dibur Echad? And so, I mean, that would make sense. First of all, that would be alphabetical. And second, that would be in order of the books, because Zachor is in Shmot and Shamor is in Dvarim. But what I thought is maybe it's because in order to remember, we first need to preserve, right? And we can't, the fact that I didn't pass that word bunchki to my children is my lapse in preserving that word. But I did pass on another word, which is kepi. And maybe that's because Mark also had that as one of his heritage words, kepi meaning head. Yeah, head. And you know, as part of the process of preservation, community plays a big role. And I think it's no surprise that there have been a lot of words that are passed down through the community from our ancestral languages, but especially from Yiddish because of the dominance of Ashkenazi Jews historically in America, like shul, bench, meaning to bless, and daven. And I want to just end by mentioning a little bit more about the word bench, because it really helps us to preserve the history of Ashkenazi Jews, because it is a word that comes from Judeo-Italian. Why is it bench? And because in German, the way you say to bless is segnen, which means to make the sign, as in make the sign of the cross. And so Jews, understandably, didn't want to say that, and so someone might have said, well, my grandpa used to say benedice, so I'll just say that. And then it stuck. It spread within the community. Benedice became bench. It's the same word as Benedict, right? And so even today, in America, a lot of people still say bench. And you just said we'll say Birkat Hamazon, but we could also say we're gonna bench. Because our community in America has become much more diverse in the last few decades, I want to encourage us to use some of these other heritage words, like the ones that are on here. So in addition to saying cholent, maybe we should also say Judeo-Arabic adafina. And maybe we should also, in addition to using some expressions like Gesundheit for bless you, maybe we should say the Ladino vivas, crescas, and florescas, which means it's actually you say one for each sneeze. So when someone sneezes, you say vivas, which means live. And then the second one you say crescas. And then the third one, and florescas. Anyway, so I want to encourage you all to check out the Jewish English Lexicon and find some new heritage words that you might want to help preserve Shamor so that the next generations can remember. Zachor.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, We invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.